There are some deaths that feel impossible to accept, not because the person was immortal, but because they seem to belong to everyone. Dolly Parton was one of those people. For generations, she was the woman who could walk onto a stage covered in rhinestones, smile beneath that unmistakable blonde hair, and somehow make millions of strangers feel as if she were speaking directly to them. She sang about heartbreak, working women, poverty, faith, family and love. She turned pain into songs people could carry with them. And even at 80, Dolly Parton was still talking about the future. That is what makes what happened next so difficult to understand. On August 25, 2026, the voice behind Jolene, "I Will Always Love You," and 9 to 5 was gone. Her family announced her death at age 80, ending a life that had seemed to move forward almost without interruption. But the most unsettling part was not simply that Dolly had died. It was how little time there appeared to be between her final public messages and the end. Only days before her death, Dolly was still speaking about her plans, her work and the things she wanted to accomplish. She had recently acknowledged that she was dealing with health problems, but she continued to project the determination that had defined her entire career. So what happened during those final days? How did a woman who was still thinking about new projects, new music and new dreams suddenly reach the final chapter of her life? And what can actually be proven about the health crisis that preceded her death? Those questions matter because the truth is more complicated than the headlines. Dolly Parton was born in Tennessee in 1946, one of 12 children raised in a family that knew poverty firsthand. Music became her way out, but it also became her way of telling the truth about where she came from. By her teenage years, she was already performing professionally. From there, she built a career that moved far beyond country music. She became a songwriter, singer, actress, businesswoman and philanthropist whose name eventually meant far more than records. Jolene became one of the most recognizable songs in American music. "I Will Always Love You" became an international standard. 9 to 5 connected her with an entirely different generation of listeners. Her films made her familiar to audiences who might never have considered themselves country music fans. Then there was Dollywood and the Imagination Library. Parton spent decades turning her success into programs that reached children and families far beyond the entertainment industry. Her Imagination Library alone became one of the largest book gifting programs in the world. Yet behind the public image was a much more private life. Dolly's marriage to Carl Dean lasted nearly 6 decades. Dean avoided the spotlight almost completely, while Dolly remained one of the most recognizable women on earth. When he died in March 2025, Dolly lost the person who had shared the private side of her life for decades. She did not pretend that the loss was easy. In the months afterward, she continued working, but she also acknowledged that she had been trying to rebuild herself emotionally and physically. She later admitted that while caring for Carl, she had not paid enough attention to her own health. That admission would become especially painful in hindsight, because by 2025 and 2026, Dolly's schedule began changing. Some appearances were postponed. Her Las Vegas residency was eventually canceled after health challenges. She missed major events connected to Dollywood and sometimes appeared through video rather than in person. In one recent message, she spoke about dizziness and dehydration and said her Nashville doctor had advised her not to travel. Still, she kept talking about the future. Just days before her death, she told people that she was dealing with health issues but remained focused on projects she still wanted to complete. She was working on plans connected to her music, her businesses, and a Broadway musical based on her life. At the 2026 ACM Honors, she accepted an award virtually and continued speaking about songwriting and the role it had played in her life. To the public, Dolly still sounded like Dolly. Still determined. Still planning. Still looking ahead. But underneath that optimism, her body was giving her warnings that could no longer be ignored. Reports published after her death said she had been hospitalized in Nashville shortly before she died, with kidney and autoimmune issues reported as part of the medical crisis. However, those reports do not establish a formal medical cause of death, and her family's initial announcement did not provide a detailed cause. That distinction is important, because the final days of Dolly Parton's life were not a movie script. There is no verified record of every conversation, every medical decision, or every private moment inside the hospital. What is known is that the woman who had spent her entire life refusing to stop moving forward had reached a point where her health finally forced her to slow down. And then, suddenly, there was no more time. The woman who had spent decades convincing people that tomorrow could be better was facing a tomorrow she would never see. 4 years, Dolly Parton had made one thing look almost effortless: continuing. Even when life became painful, she kept working. Even after losing Carl Dean in March 2025, she returned to the stage, the studio, and the business projects that had occupied her for decades. But by the summer of 2026, the signs were becoming harder to overlook. Dolly had already acknowledged that her health had changed. In an interview with People, she said she was dealing with health issues that she had neglected while caring for Carl. She also explained that she had been experiencing problems including dizziness and dehydration, and that her doctors had advised her not to travel at one point. Then came the changes her fans could actually see. When a new ride opened at Dollywood in August, Dolly did not appear in person. Instead, she addressed the crowd through video. It was not necessarily alarming on its own. Dolly was 80 years old, and she had spent a lifetime working at a pace that few people could sustain. But there were other signs. Her planned Las Vegas residency was canceled after her health problems. Some appearances were postponed or changed. And yet she continued discussing the future. She was still talking about music. Still talking about her plans for a Nashville museum. Still thinking about the Broadway musical inspired by her life. Still imagining what came next. In an interview published only days before her death, Dolly said she was just getting started and spoke about having many things she still wanted to achieve. That interview became painfully significant after the news of her death. Because the same day that interview became public, Dolly was admitted to a hospital. According to People, she entered a hospital on Friday, August 21st, 4 days before her death. Entertainment Weekly likewise reported that she was hospitalized 4 days before she died. That is where the public record becomes much quieter. Reports from TMZ said Dolly was admitted to Vanderbilt University Medical Center in Nashville with kidney and autoimmune issues. TMZ also reported that she died at the hospital on August 25th. But those details came from reporting rather than a detailed medical statement from Dolly's family. And that distinction matters. There was no publicly released medical timeline describing exactly what happened after she entered the hospital. No verified account of every treatment she received. No confirmed description of her final hours. No public statement from her doctors explaining precisely why her condition deteriorated so quickly. Most importantly, as of August 26, 2026, her family had not publicly released an official cause of death. Multiple reports continued to state that the cause remained undisclosed. That means claims circulating beyond those facts need to be treated carefully. The reported kidney and autoimmune problems may help explain why her health had become serious, but they should not automatically be presented as the official cause of death. Dolly knew she was not feeling like herself. She had admitted that she had health issues. She had reduced some of her public activities. She had been advised by doctors not to travel on at least one occasion. And only 4 days before her death, she entered a Nashville hospital. Yet even then, the public image was not one of someone announcing that the end was near. It was Dolly Parton doing what Dolly Parton had always done. Looking forward. On August 21st, she was still associated with plans for the future. On August 25th, she was dead. That 4-day gap is the central unanswered question surrounding her final chapter. What happened inside those 4 days? The honest answer is that the public does not yet know every detail. And perhaps that is one of the hardest things for fans to accept. Dolly Parton had spent 7 decades telling stories. She had made a career out of putting private emotions into public songs. She could take heartbreak and turn it into a melody. She could take poverty and turn it into a memory. She could take love and make millions of people recognize themselves in it. But this final story was different. This time, there was no song explaining what was happening. No interview describing every detail. No final performance giving the audience a neatly defined ending. There was only a woman who had spent her life moving forward, suddenly facing a medical crisis away from the cameras. And while she remained hospitalized, the outside world continued believing that there would be another Dolly project, another appearance, another song, another announcement. Then Tuesday arrived. On August 25th, Dolly Parton died in Nashville at the age of 80. Reuters and the Associated Press both confirmed her death in Nashville, while her family communicated the news through her nephew, Brian Seaver. The world that had watched Dolly reinvent herself again and again suddenly had to confront something nobody could postpone. Her story had reached its final page. But the most revealing part of the story was still ahead. Because once her family spoke publicly, the focus shifted from the medical mystery surrounding her final days to something much more personal. The woman Dolly had been when the cameras were gone, the husband she had lost only 18 months earlier, and the message she had left behind for the people who loved her. And that message would make her death feel even more painful. Her nephew, Brian Seaver, delivered the message. He did not provide a medical cause of death. Instead, he spoke about Dolly's faith, her life, and the belief that she had been reunited with people she loved, including her husband, Carl Dean, who had died in 2025. That detail matters. Because after all the speculation surrounding her final days, the family's first message was not about a diagnosis. It was about Dolly herself. Her family said she had lived in the light, and described her as being in the arms of Jesus. The funeral, they announced, would be a small, private service for immediate family, in keeping with Dolly's wishes. And with that announcement, the final mystery surrounding her death became clearer in one important way. There was no hidden scandal, no evidence of foul play, no confirmed secret that suddenly changed the story of her life. The shocking truth was much more human. Dolly Parton had been facing serious health problems during the final period of her life, was hospitalized on August 21st, and died 4 days later in Nashville. The public knows she was hospitalized. The public knows her health had deteriorated. The public knows she died in Nashville. But the exact medical sequence that led from hospitalization to death remains private. And perhaps it should. Because there is another part of Dolly's final story that deserves more attention than any medical speculation. Carl Dean. For almost 60 years, Carl was the person Dolly came home to when the lights went out. He was famously private. He rarely appeared beside her in public. While Dolly became a global celebrity, Carl remained largely outside that world. Then, in March 2025, he died. Dolly continued afterward. She wrote about him. She spoke about him. She worked through the grief. But she had also admitted that caring for Carl had caused her to put her own health second. By the time she began speaking more openly about her physical problems, she was also carrying the emotional weight of losing the man who had been beside her for most of her adult life. And now, only about 17 months after Carl's death, Dolly was gone too. Her nephew's announcement made that connection impossible to ignore. His words placed Carl among the people Dolly had loved who, in the family's faith, were waiting to welcome her. For fans who had watched their marriage from a distance, it was an especially emotional image. Not because anyone can know what Dolly experienced in her final moments. No reliable public account gives us those private details. But because the family itself chose to frame her passing through the people and beliefs that mattered most to her. And then came the tributes. They arrived almost immediately. Reba McEntire, Lily Tomlin, Dionne Warwick, Casey Musgraves, Jane Fonda, Vince Gill and many others publicly mourned her. Their messages were different, but the same idea kept appearing. Dolly had been unusually kind, unusually talented, and unusually generous with the people around her. Jane Fonda remembered her warmth and empathy. Julia Roberts described her as a joyous human being. Other artists remembered the songwriter, the performer, the friend, the mentor and the woman whose influence reached far beyond country music. That breadth of grief tells you something about Dolly's career. She was never only a country singer. Jolene belonged to country music, but its story of jealousy and fear crossed every cultural boundary. I Will Always Love You became one of the most recognizable love songs ever written. 9 to 5 gave working women a song that captured frustration, ambition, and independence. And then there was Dolly the actress, appearing in films including 9 to 5 and Steel Magnolias. But perhaps her greatest influence came from what she did when nobody was asking her to make another hit record. She built. She invested. She gave. Dollywood became a major Tennessee attraction and an important part of the region's economy. Her imagination library turned her belief in children and reading into a worldwide literacy program that has distributed hundreds of millions of books. That is why her death feels larger than the loss of a recording artist. Dolly understood something that many entertainers never fully grasp. Fame disappears quickly if it exists only on a stage. So she built things that could continue without her. Books would still arrive at children's homes. Dollywood would still open its gates. Her songs would still play. Young singers would still discover Jolene. People falling in love would still hear I will always love you. Workers would still recognize themselves in 9 to 5. And somewhere, someone who had never met Dolly Parton would hear one of those songs for the first time and wonder who had written it. That is the strange thing about death. It removes the person. It does not remove everything they set into motion. Dolly's final public period makes that reality even more powerful. Only days before her death, she was still talking about what she wanted to accomplish. Her Broadway musical, Dolly, a true original musical, was still part of her plans. The production's official website preserves Dolly's own words about wanting to bring her life story and songs to Broadway. She thought there was more ahead. She had more songs, more ideas, more work, more things she wanted to give people. Then her health changed the timetable. That is perhaps the most painful contrast of all. Dolly Parton did not spend her final public years preparing the world for goodbye. She was still planning tomorrow. And then tomorrow came without her. There is a temptation, after a celebrity dies, to search for one final secret, one hidden diagnosis, one conversation, one last sentence, one moment that explains everything. But Dolly's story does not require invention. The truth is already sad enough. She was an 80-year-old woman who had lived an extraordinarily demanding life. She had recently endured the death of her husband. She had acknowledged health problems. Her public schedule had changed. She was hospitalized days before her death. And on August 25th, she died. Her family asked people not to fill the space with flowers, but instead to honor Dolly through donations to the Imagination Library. Her own organization now describes her life as one defined by music, kindness, and resilience, while confirming her dates of birth and death and her wish for a private family service. That request may be the most fitting ending possible, because Dolly spent her life giving something away. Songs, books, laughter, opportunities, hope. And when she was finally gone, her family pointed people toward children who could still benefit from something bearing her name. The woman was gone. The work continued. The voice was silent. The songs remained. And perhaps that is where Dolly Parton's final story should end. Not with an invented account of her last breath. Not with rumors pretending to be medical facts. Not with a sensational explanation that the evidence cannot support. But with what we actually know. Dolly Parton died in Nashville at 80, after a final period marked by declining health and hospitalization. The precise medical cause of her death had not been publicly disclosed by her family as of August 26, 2026. What we do know is that she left behind a body of music that crossed generations, businesses that transformed her home state, a literacy program that continues reaching children, and memories shared by people who never met her but somehow felt that they knew her. For decades, Dolly Parton sang about people trying to survive heartbreak. She sang about work. She sang about dreams. She sang about losing the person you love. And she sang about holding on anyway. In the end, her own life contained all of those things. The poverty of childhood, the extraordinary rise, the love story with Carl Dean, the grief of losing him, the physical decline that became impossible to hide, and finally, the quiet ending that came after a lifetime spent in the brightest possible light. Dolly Parton may no longer be here to sing those songs. But every time Jolene begins, every time I Will Always Love You fills a room, every time a child opens an Imagination Library book, and every time another generation discovers the woman behind the rhinestones, Dolly's voice begins again. She spent her life making sure people had something to hold on to. Now the world holds on to her music. And that may be the most fitting goodbye of all. If Dolly Parton's story touched your heart, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories about the lives, struggles, and unforgettable moments of the people who shaped our world. And before you leave, remember this. Dolly Parton spent her entire life giving people something to believe in, through her music, her kindness, her laughter, and the countless lives she touched. Now, the spotlight has gone quiet, but her voice has not. Her songs will still play. Her books will still reach children. Her stories will still be told. And somewhere, years from now, someone will hear Dolly Parton for the very first time and discover the extraordinary woman behind the voice. That is how a life truly continues. Not because the person never leaves, but because what they gave the world never does. Rest peacefully, Dolly. And thank you for the music.